Let me start by asking you a difficult question. If an entire tiger family, a mother with all her cubs, they die within just a few days, and that too inside one of the most protected tiger reserves of India, what does that tell us? Is it simply an unfortunate natural event, or does it reveal something deeper about how we protect our wildlife? Now, this is something that has exactly happened in the Kanha Tiger Reserve. A tigress and her four cubs have died, and that too within a very short span of time. Now, this is not just about five animals, this is about the reliability of a system that is designed to protect them. So, today we will examine this incident in detail. That is, what happened, what caused it, and what it tells us about conservation in India. So, welcome viewers to Legacy IAS. In this video, we are trying to cover this incident that is very unfortunate and talks about a big cat family that was lost with Tigress and her four cubs, which die within few days in the Kanha Tiger Reserve. Now, to understand all of this, we must understand what exactly happened. So, let us begin with the facts and understand what was the timeline of the deaths. Now, this is not a single incident, okay? It unfolded over several days. That is, on April 21st, the first cub was found dead. On April 24th, a second cub was discovered. On April 25th, a third cub was found. Now, at this point, forest officials intensified tracking efforts. They located the tigress and identified the tigress as T141, and that along with her last surviving cub. Now, both were in severe distress. They appeared weak, disoriented, and they showed signs of breathing difficulty. They were tranquilized and moved to a veterinary quarantine facility. Now, despite treatment, the tigress died. Shortly after, the final cub also died. So within days, an entire tiger family had been lost. This is critical to understand because this was not an isolated death. This was the collapse of an entire dependent unit. Now, further, we must understand what caused the deaths, like what was behind these deaths of the tiger. That is, from starvation, suspicion to infection. That means initially the officials suspected that this might be a case of starvation. Now, this is a common concern in cub mortality, especially if the mother is unable to hunt effectively. However, further examination changed that understanding. Now, the officials have confirmed that the deaths were linked to a serious lung infection. The tigress showed clear signs of respiratory diseases, that is, in difficulty in breathing. She showed weakness and inability to hunt. Now, this is important because cub survival depends entirely on the mother. Once the tigress becomes physically compromised, the cub's survival chances dropped sharply. Additionally, the cubs themselves were likely infected. They became progressively weaker and were unable to recover. Now, investigations are still ongoing. Samples have been collected. Water sources and surrounding areas are now being examined to understand the cause behind this infection. But, however, this leads us to a key conclusion that this was not actually starvation, and this was actually a disease event that affected the entire family. Now, why is this a major concern when we talk about wildlife conservation, especially tiger? When we talk about so many tiger projects are there, Project Tiger is there, and then there you have tiger census that is being conducted every 4 years. Why is this becoming now a major concern? That is, it is beyond one family and it is about actually the system. That means we must question the system. That means the wildlife conservation, and why have the projects not been able to cause such kind of ill effects on the wildlife. So this incident becomes serious because first, the reason is scale. That is, this is not just isolated event. This is not just about one tiger. This was about 5 deaths, and that too within a very short time frame. The second thing is monitoring effectiveness. That means Kanha Tiger Reserve, that is one of the most prominent tiger reserves. If a tigress and a cubs were deteriorating over time, were early warning signs missed? Now, in modern conservation systems, behavioral changes such as reduced movement, poor feeding, or weakness should ideally be detected very early. The third thing is disease detection. Disease detection. That means if this was an infection, how early was it identified? Could intervention have been faster? The fourth is the risk of spread. That means when wildlife diseases are rarely they are going to remain isolated. Okay. If not contained, that means if you do not contain through some control measures, if you do not contain these diseases, they run a risk of spreading. That means they can affect other animals in the ecosystem. Now, this incident raises a critical insight. That is, wildlife deaths are not always isolated events. They are indicators of ecosystem health and system preparedness. Understanding this in the broader context, we understand this fully. That is tiger deaths in India. That is what is the larger pattern that we are observing. So India has been seeing rising tiger deaths in recent years, and the causes are varied. It can be disease, it can be electrocution, it can be human wildlife conflict, and sometimes it is also unexplained factors. So there have been cases where tigers were killed by electric traps. Others have died due to unclear circumstances. In some instances, investigations have not led to definite conclusions. This highlights a key issue. The key issue here is that conservation is not only about increasing the numbers, it is also about maintaining safety, maintaining health, and monitoring systems. As we celebrate the population of tigers as it is growing, the pressure on habitats will also increase. And when the pressure on habitats increase, so does the risk. Leads to a critical understanding that success in numbers does not eliminate the underlying threats. Now the bigger lesson, that what does this incident ultimately tell us? That is, conservation is more important than protection. That is, creating a protected area is just the beginning of it. That means even if you have National Tiger Conservation Authority designating tiger reserves, it is just the start or the beginning of the tiger conservation project. The second thing is real time monitoring is essential. You monitor animal movement, behavior, and their health. It must be tracked continuously. Third is disease surveillance is critical. That means the wildlife health systems must be proactive rather than being reactive. Fourth, ecosystems are interconnected. Water, prey, vegetation, and disease cycles all influence survival. And finally, there is a fundamental lesson. That means the protection does not automatically prevent loss. Systems must be responsive, adaptive, and prepared. Thank you so much.